Recent news has dropped, which has caused quite a buzz in the Final Fantasy VII Remake community. At first, I was very suspicious about the news because it was about the release date, and of course, anything regarding the release date in Final Fantasy VII, you should immediately just discredit and throw away. And I actually started making a video where I was kind of debunking a lot of the claims that some of the more prominent YouTubers out there were making. But as I started digging into some of the evidence for myself and compiling that with some of the evidence that we have already compiled here at Less Than Epic with other events that have happened in the Remake community, it started to become fairly evident that there was a large basis for the Remake release date claims. So I'm going to keep a running tab of the evidence that is mounting up here in the corners somewhere so that you can see exactly why I'm making the decisions that I'm making, and you can make up your own mind based on that evidence. This is Radical Edward for Less Than Epic. I'm super sick if you can't tell, but damn it, there's Remake news. The show must go on. So what the hell happened? Why is there all of a sudden buzz and speculation about the release date of Final Fantasy VII Remake? Well, in February, a financial report was released for Square Enix. Most notable for us Remake followers, Square Enix noted that they're expecting an operating revenue of between 40 and 50 billion yen in Q3 of fiscal year 2020. And if I have this right, that is October through December 2019. That's their fiscal year Q3 for 2020. And 40 to 50 billion yen in dollars for us Ameritards is 357 million to 446 million, give or take a decimal point. There was also a Q&A section of the financial report, which is not very uncommon for financial reports, but there were 3 very interesting questions as it pertains to the Final Fantasy VII Remake. Let's dig into those first. Do you believe you can achieve an operating income of 30 billion yen, that is, in fiscal year 2019 Q3? Or have you maintained full year guidance because you believe you're in the clear so long as you don't undershoot guidance by more than 30% based on Tokyo Stock Exchange disclosures? Answer, and I believe this is coming from Yosuke Matsuda, the president of Square Enix. We see some uncertainty in terms of the extent to which we are able to make up ground lost in Q3 because we could incur valuation loss depending on the timing at which we release new major titles in fiscal year 2020. That said, we also see some potential upside factors, so we intend to work hard to achieve our 30 billion target. So if you didn't catch that there, a lot of this is dependent on them actually releasing new major titles, and that's the big point. And we're going to start adding things onto this now. We've got the 40 to 50 billion that they're hoping to hit at the end of this year. So that's a big chunk of their revenue for the entire year, gained within the last 3 months of this year. And now they've just said that a lot of that is dependent on whether or not they're able to hit their deadlines and release new major titles, in their words. Question 2 in the Q&A. What can you tell us about the timeline of your fiscal year 2020 quarter 3 releases? You may as well just walk in there and say, are you releasing the Final Fantasy VII Remake? Anyway, they answered, I cannot go into any detail at the moment, but I believe we will be able to make various announcements in the leading up to this year's E3. Holy shit. They're planning to make a lot of announcements leading up to this year's E3. So realistically, any time over the next couple of months through this summer leading up to E3, they're planning to make announcements. This would seem to confirm some of the rumors that people have been saying, where we're going to get a big media dump in April this year. That is not that far off. But alright, let's throw that up there. They're planning to make a lot of announcements this year as relating to new major releases for what's going to happen in October through December 2019. Moving on to the third interesting question. How likely are you to reach your operating income target of 40 to 50 billion yen with the lineup you have planned for fiscal year 2020 Q3? Answer. We believe operating income of 40 to 50 billion yen will be attainable in fiscal year 2020 quarter 3 with the lineup we currently have planned. Big point there. But we still see risk of deviating from our target depending on when we release new titles and on how our development efforts progress. So this is a little bit of a reiteration of what they've already been saying in this financial report, but it just drives home the point. Square Enix plans to make a shit ton of money between October and December 2019. They plan to do it with their existing lineup of video game releases, and that entire figure depends on when they're able to hit milestones and release new major releases, i.e. the Final Fantasy VII Remake is #1 on that list of games that could make that kind of money. That's where the speculation really started rolling. And remember, they said they're planning to do press releases on exactly which titles are going to help them hit these financial goals leading up to E3. There are not many titles at Square Enix that could pull in that chunk of change in a single quarter. Honestly, the people that are saying that Final Fantasy VII Remake is releasing in 2019 just based on this report have some pretty good evidence on their side just with the information that we just went through. But that wasn't quite convincing enough for me. I've seen tons of misinformation about this game, so I was super skeptical, though a little bit excited, admittedly, after I went through this. So, I went out and dug up everything that I could based on what I've covered before on this channel, and I think I've come up with some really interesting corollary evidence that really backs up the timeline that's laid out in this financial report. So the first piece of corollary evidence, which would really back up what's going on in this financial report, is that Nobuo Uematsu, that is the lead composer on the Final Fantasy VII Remake, he also composed the soundtrack for the original Final Fantasy VII and is now coming back for the remake. He accidentally, on a podcast I believe it was, let it slip that they initially planned to release the Final Fantasy VII Remake in October through December of 2018. So, if it is the Final Fantasy VII Remake that this financial report is talking about, that would be a 1-year delay from their initially planned release date. A 1-year delay is a pretty good chunk of time, and if they had some development that took them off of that initial timeline, like bringing the game in-house from CyberConnect 2, which definitely happened in 2017, then this would give them that additional year to make up that lost development time. So my second piece of evidence for you is that back in January of this year, there was an interview released with the lead planner of Division 1 at Square Enix, Shinichiro Biwa. We covered this interview back in late January on this channel. It actually ended up being one of our most viewed videos and liked videos of all time. Really enjoyed everybody's feedback on that, and it actually turned out to be a really good information hunt for the remake. So go and check that out if you haven't yet, or you don't know what came out in that interview. Anyway, the biggest piece of information that came out from that interview as relating to this new timeline that's coming out from this financial report is that Shinichiro Biwa suggested to us that the remake was much farther along in development than we might have thought it was. And there's definitely a few reasons we would have extrapolated that from that interview, so go ahead and check out that video if you're interested as to why. Alright, the third piece of evidence that I have for you is that in late 2018, I believe it was December actually 2018, Famitsu, a popular Japanese video game magazine, ran one of their standard pieces, and that was called, let me look this up real quick, Next Year's Aspirations of Game Developers. Maybe a botched translation there, but that's what it is. Anyway, in that piece, they asked many prominent game developers what is the one word they would use to describe the upcoming year, that is 2019, and if they could give a few comments on that. Lucky for us, one of the developers asked that question was Tetsuya Nomura, as you know is the director of the Final Fantasy VII Remake. Nomura said in classic Nomura fashion that 2019 would be the year of 7. Just the number 7. And the only comment that he gave on that is many announcements are coming. That's it. Super cryptic. But if we now combine that with a financial report, we can start to see a story forming. 2019 is the year of 7, so Final Fantasy VII. They're going to have many announcements on major titles leading up to E3 of this year. They plan to make a boatload of freaking cash between October and December this year, and all of that is dependent on the timeline of new major releases. Holy shit, this evidence is mounting. It's about the point where I got to hear that I was like, this could fucking be real. This might actually be real. Anyway, I know that's not a straight up confirmation, and we're probably not going to get anything like that until their major announcements, which are going to happen up to and including E3 of this year. But I think this additional evidence, combined with this financial report, would at the very least suggest that Square Enix is intending to release the Final Fantasy VII Remake at the end of 2019. As I stated earlier, when I started this exercise, I was very skeptical of people saying that the remake was releasing in 2019. I even denounced that exact same idea a few videos back. I said do not expect the remake in 2019. However, as I started compiling all of this evidence that we just went through, it started to become pretty clear that everything was pointing and leading to one direction that was pretty hard to deny. So even if Square Enix is intending to release the remake between October and December 2019, we definitely need to temper that with the fact that these schedules can change. It seems like this is what their intention is, but that's definitely not a for sure confirmation that this is happening. After all, let's not forget what happened to Kingdom Hearts 3. We saw that one get pushed back quite a bit past their initial intended release date. And that one was Nomura running the show as well, so that could definitely happen to the Final Fantasy VII Remake, regardless of what their business intentions are. Anyway, let me know what you think down in the comments below. Does this evidence do it for you? Are you convinced at this point that the remake is releasing in 2019, or are you still skeptical? I'm somewhere on the edge, probably leaning more towards this is definitely what their intentions are, but I highly doubt they have the capability to hit that mark. If they do, I'm obviously going to be stoked. I don't think it means something like they're going to be rushing the game like some other people have suggested. I think that Square Enix at this point knows they have to get the remake right. And the last thing that they're going to do is rush this game. And if they push it back, that is what it is. We weren't expecting it in 2019 anyway. It'll be totally fine if they push it back. And with that, I'll be continuing to cover the Final Fantasy VII Remake right here on Less Than Epic. So if you like the video, then like the video. Subscribe to the channel and hit the little bell icon so you get notified when our videos go live. This has been Radical Edward for Less Than Epic, signing out.